That's right, another round of Justice League Transformers. I'm actually promptly doing a sequel to something for once. Seemed like lots of people were really into Monday's Justice League Transformers episode. I was really enjoying the story that I was writing for it and the designs for it. So I figured, let's just jump right into the sequel. And a lot of people had been asking that I do Justice League villains as Transformers. I did really like that idea, but I already planned out how I would wrap up the story and I, needed to use heroes for that. But I do introduce more villains in this episode, so if you want to see me draw them or do Marvel Transformers or any other kind of Transformers episodes, make sure to leave a like so that I know you're enjoying the Transformers stuff. The more likes this gets, the more likely I'm going to do another Transformers episode soon. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump right into our Flash Transformer and continue on with the story. Everything was in place for the raid on Oceamatron. Batimus, Wondrous Omega, and Aquacentron were all perched in different areas around the place. Oceamatron and his advisor, Marimal, were set to meet with a Decepticon general. Batimus and crew hadn't stood a chance against Oceamatron in the Atlantean home turf, or home tides, of the Rest Sea, so they'd gotten intel from an insider who told Aquacentron of this on-land meeting. It was their best chance to take down Oceamatron and put a proper leader on the Atlantean throne. But Batimus was on edge. He and his team were all able fighters, but they were getting down to the wire as the planet-destroying monstrosity Dark-Cron was only days away from reaching Cybertron. They had to get this done fast, so it didn't help calm his nerves when Oceamatron arrived with far more Atlantean guards than they'd expected. In total, with the Decepticons and their general, there were 50 enemy combatants. It wasn't going to be an easy fight. But luckily, easy wasn't what Wondrous Omega wanted anyway. Cloaked until the last second, revealing herself with a booming battle cry, Wondrous fired down to the field and drove her sword instantly through 3 Atlanteans. Aquacentron went straight for Oceamatron. Batimus fired a grappling hook across the battle, ready to swing down and try and help take out Oceamatron as quickly as possible, hoping to keep the fight short. But as he swung in, he was blindsided by an explosive crimson eye beam. It seems an ambush had been anticipated, and Oceamatron had his personal assassin on standby, Manta Magnus. This wasn't good. Batimus now had his hands full with a single combatant. Wondrous was taking as many as she could, but the Atlanteans were naturally incredibly strong, and some were starting to surround Aquacentron. The team needed an ace in the hole. Luckily, Batimus's right-hand man, Alphron Pax, had called in the speediest cavalry he could. A blurred red and gold streak fired onto the scene, tackling through 6 enemies in a blink. Flashride screeched to a brief halt to assess the scene, then zipped back into fighting. He was the fastest being on all of Cybertron and could take out full squadrons before they even knew what hit them. He'd been an inventor and soldier helping the Autobots in the state of Centron when he'd gotten the call from Alphron, which had only been about 5 minutes ago. Like I said, he moves really fast. With Flashride and Wondrous holding off the Atlanteans, that just left Aquacentron to handle Oceamatron and Batimus to handle Manta Magnus. Manta was a massively strong fighter, but Batimus had the greatest asset of all on his side. He was rich. He stopped and said, "I'll transfer you 1,000 compressed energon cubes if you help finish off the Decepticon squadron." Magnus had a major score to settle with Aquacentron, but saw that this battle was far from winnable for his side. "Make it 2,000 and I'd just walk away right now." Fine. Batimus wasn't proud of paying off an assassin, but he could deal with Manta after the Dark-Cron problem was solved. Soon after, the battle was won. Aquacentron had had help in his duel with Oceamatron, as the person who'd given them intel on the meeting had been right by his side, Marimal. With Oceamatron restrained and ready for judgment, Marimal was put on the throne, ready to lead the Atlanteans to a righteous fight on the side of the Autobots. It was a victory to be sure, but now Batimus's team had to turn their attentions to the stars and go after the biggest threat of all. Now all the parts of the story run a little bit longer this time, so I won't get too in-depth on what I did for the designs of each character, but basically I'll just give you a brief overview. For Flash Ride, I decided to base him off a motorcycle. I thought about making him a jet, because obviously that's one of the fastest vehicles known to humans, but I didn't really want to make him a flying character, and I really wanted to give him feet, wheels, and have him in a running pose, and I wanted to make him a little bit smaller and leaner than some of the other characters in this. So, I went with a motorcycle. Might not necessarily be the best fit for the Flash, but I really like how it turned out. So I hope you like the finished version of Flash Ride. Batimus, Wondrous Omega, Aquacentron, and Flash Ride boarded the Batship to head off to space. There was one other member of their team to be met, but Batimus had sent out the call and they could meet him on the way to their target. Or so they hoped. The final member of the team was to be a being Batimus had actually fought against at a time when Batimus was less trusting and more hot-headed. Now he knew this ally might be their greatest hope in defeating Dark-Cron. The plan had been to meet with him and make a plan of attack, but to their dismay, Dark-Cron was far closer than Batimus had calculated. He was now only a few hours from reaching Cybertron, and he already seemed to be in a fury. Pillars of fire erupted from his planetoid body, and swarms of smaller mechs were circling the planet, and seemed to be converging on a glowing emerald star in the distance. But as Batimus and the team approached, it became clearer. The green light was in fact a being, and one of their own species. The being noticed them, and while still brawling away swaths of Dark-Cron's minions, he made contact with their ship. "This is John Tor of the Green Lantern Corps. The area is unsafe. Please evacuate the premises." Batimus hastily explained that they were also there to fight Dark-Cron. He had the workings of a plan, but needed to get his team onto Dark-Cron's surface to take him down. At that point, Wondrous leapt from the ship and started helping John Tor wipe through waves of Dark-Cron's parabots. Wondrous's speed and strength and skills with a blade were impressive, but the most awe-inspiring fight was put up by the Lantern. Not only could he batter through enemies with his crane-like arms, but as a Green Lantern, he could create massive light constructs to eviscerate dozens of enemies at once. You see, John Tor at a time had been a normal being of Cybertron, working as an impressive architect, designing and building some of the greatest constructs on the planet. But when the Green Lantern of his sector had died, the Ring chose him as the new protector of all the surrounding planets. During the Civil War, to this point, he'd been off-world training as a Lantern, but with his training completed, he was now up against one of the greatest challenges in the universe. Luckily, he had a team there helping. Now Wondrous and John Tor were fighting well, and Batimus was firing gallantly with everything the Batship had. They were cutting through hundreds of minions when Dark-Cron had clearly seen enough. Before the team could reach the planet's surface, it started to shift and break apart. A satanic symphony of clanking and grinding metal rang through the vacuum of space, defying the laws of physics, as Dark-Cron changed from his planetoid apocalypse form into the godly monstrosity himself. A massive humanoid beast who could crush all 5 of the team in an instant if he so desired. And he did desire. He slowly lurched a hand up for a swing, and a moon-sized fist cratered towards the Batship. Wondrous did all she could to slow it, but it was no use. John Tor made a colossal hand to try and hold it back, but it was too strong. Batimus took evasive maneuvers, but the arm was still easily on track to hit them. The team all braced for impact, when a quiet clang rang out and halted the impending destruction. The team all looked to see the beacon of hope, Superior Maximus, holding Dark-Cron's fist in place. Now for John Stewart, the Green Lantern, originally I thought of turning him into the Interceptor, which is, I believe, the name of the ship from the Green Lantern animated series that only ran for 2 seasons, but I remember it being really, really great. But I already had ideas to make Superman some kind of spaceship, plus the Interceptor was Hal Jordan's ship from what I remember. And then I remembered the fact that Jon Stewart is an architect. So I thought, okay, that, it's related to construction, so let's make him some kind of cool, big construction type transformer. And then I'd also thought about trying to change the Green Lantern part of him to fit a little bit more into Cybertron culture, but then I was like, the Green Lantern Corps are just a space-born group of protectors. I can just make a transformer a Green Lantern. And I think that worked pretty well. I really love how this one turned out. I think I made his face a little bit too Iron Man-like, but besides that, I'm quite happy with it. So here's our Green Lantern Transformer. This is just a little mid-video interruption to point out that we are getting very close to 200,000 subscribers. So if you want to help bump us up to that mark, and you're not subscribed already, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when videos come out on Fridays and Mondays. Because if you've watched this far into the video, presumably you're enjoying yourself, and I do lots of stuff like this on the channel, so where's the harm in subscribing? Anyway, back into the story. Let's finish this. Dark-Cron had godly strength due to his massive size, but Superion Maximus was an anomaly, remaining the size of an average Cybertron resident, but with strength that rivaled Dark-Cron's. Superion had been created on a colony of Cybertronians who had fled the planet centuries ago. They'd attempted to create the ideal version of their own species, both physically and mentally. They'd wanted to create a peaceful utopia, but as the years went on, it became clear that this was unlikely to succeed. Some beings had different ideas of what perfection meant, and this led to arguments and rivalries. Jarelion believed that he'd finally helped mold the perfect member of their own kind, ready to be born, but knew that others would try to alter him before his initial awakening. Jarelion put his creation into a ship, set it to commence the birthing process upon impact, and shot the ship back to Cybertron, where he could be a savior to the old world. That was where Superion grew up, an allegedly perfect being sent to live in an imperfect world. He fought as a hero and a savior, but some hadn't trusted him because of his immense power. Some, like Batimus. And while Batimus for a time had tried to bring down the Incredible Bot, eventually he'd accept that they were indeed on the same side. Something Batimus was now very grateful for, as they needed him more than ever. Superion was strong enough to distract Dark-Cron alone. This allowed the team to reach his surface, with Jontor and Wondrous fending off the Parabots. Once on Dark-Cron's body, his gravitational pull allowed the non-flyers to move around freely, and Flash Ride was off in a blur. His job was to find all Dark-Cron's weak points so that the team could slow him down, while Batimus found and hacked into his central processor. This wouldn't kill Dark-Cron, as he could reset and awaken, but for a being of his size, that could take decades to get back to full operation. Batimus and Aquacentron continued to fight off Parabots on the ground as the planet-sized beast quaked through his blows with Superion. Superion was impossibly strong to be sure, but Dark-Cron's blows were bordering on deadly even for the Supreme Being. This fight would need to be over fast. Luckily, fast was Flash Ride's style. He found all Dark-Cron's weakest points and sent the various team members to them. He then grabbed Batimus and ran him straight to Dark-Cron's central processor, which was heavily guarded by Parabots. Flash Ride did his best to hold them off, but Batimus would have to fight while hacking. Dark-Cron's limbs were slowly being worn down by the team, and he started to realize what was happening inside him. Batimus was getting close to his goal, but in an unexpected attempt at self-protection, Dark-Cron drove his own fist into his stomach to grab Batimus. Everything shook like 1,000 earthquakes as the hand approached Batimus. But just before collision, Superion shot in and caught Dark-Cron's fingers, just barely keeping them off Batimus. And while Superion held off the attack, Batimus completed the hacking. All power across Dark-Cron's massive body shut down. Everything went dark and Parabots stopped their fight, now falling to the ground or floating off into space. The team had done it. Superion spent the next few weeks pushing Dark-Cron to the farthest, most lifeless stretch of the universe, and Batimus returned to Cybertron with the rest of the group. They all took pride in what they'd done. They had saved Cybertron. But on the planet, there was still much work to be done. Now with Superman, I put a little bit less thought into what to do with his vehicle mode. I was kind of taking inspiration from the ship that he was in when he was shot to Earth, but obviously there have been a lot of different designs of that. I just wanted some kind of sci-fi type ship. I also knew I wanted to make him look different from the others, so I tried using a lot more rounded shapes. I wanted him to look more nice and friendly, kind of, because Superman's supposed to be a symbol of hope, and just generally more smiley than other superheroes, even though in a lot of cases he's not really portrayed like that. But I just wanted him to look nice and hopeful and, you know, that classic idea of Superman. And I think I pulled that off. I really do like how this one looks. But that completes our final Justice League Transformer. I hope you like the story and the final design. Here it is. Alright, and that concludes the tale of the Justice League Transformers. But of course, as always, I am super happy to continue doing more stories in this same world and universe, turning other stuff into Transformers. I could work Marvel Transformers into this same world, put them in the war for Cybertron. Also, the second Avengers as Dragons video has been randomly jumping up in tons of views the last few days. So, welcome to the channel, everyone who's come to us from that. And of course, I got plenty of turning stuff into dragons on this channel. I for sure am gonna do Justice League characters as dragons at some point, and I keep meaning to do a Teen Titans episode. But anyway, check out lots of the other videos on this channel if you haven't seen them before. Monday's episode is actually gonna be something kind of different. I mean, it is a storytelling and design kind of episode, but it's gonna be something that a niche group of audience members are gonna be super excited about. In fact, I think they'll be so excited about it, they'll hardly be able to stand it. That will be nonsense to a lot of people, but some people probably have a decent idea of what the episode is now. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios. Wait. My end screen thing comes in on this side, I think. Unless I've gotten that wrong again. No, I think that's it. Anyway, I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the Nerdy Start videos on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video on Monday.